We've got your running back tiers right now on Fantasy Football Today Express. What's up, everybody? This is Jamie. Wait, was it me and you yesterday? It was,
No,
right? It was
was
Heath?
not.
Oh, well, Jamie, welcome to FFT Express.
Thank you.
All right, you know how this works?
You talk, I talk, people listen, and we hopefully help people win their fantasy leagues.
That's right. Let's go to your running back tiers. Your first tier is 3 players. It's Christian McCaffrey, Brees Hall.
Do you know how this works?
I almost said Jamie Eisenberg. It's Christian McCaffrey, Brees Hall, and Bijan Robinson. Your second tier, Gibbs.
Remember when I got drafted in a fantasy league?
Yes, I do remember that, but it wasn't as tier 1. Gibbs, Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, and Kyren Williams. All right, so what's so special about Gibbs, Barkley, Taylor, and Kyren Williams? Why are they better than the guys in the next group?
I think these guys all have potential to be first-round picks. I think if things go right, they could challenge to be the number 1 running back this year. This is where the group ends of the guys I think they could challenge to be the number 1 running backs this year. I guess if you want to say, Derrick Henry scores 25 touchdowns or, Pacheco becomes a significant factor in the passing game, one of those things, those type of guys. But this group, Gibbs, we saw it last year, and he's a Montgomery injury away from being an absolute superstar. Barkley, I think, will be much better in Philadelphia than he was in the Giants. We didn't really talk about that too much from my perspective, but I do think he's going to have a bounce back season closer to his rookie campaign, 20 plus fantasy points in that range. And then Taylor, we know the upside there. I think for him, it's going to have to be a 2021 season all over again, where he's 2,000 total yards and 20 total touchdowns, but he's capable of that. And Kyren Williams last year, number 2 in PPR points per game, despite missing 4 games, so that hurt his overall totals, but was just an absolute stud. So if Blake Corum is not a factor, he's got a chance to be, in the conversation to be top 3 again.
Yeah, let's do it differently than the show we just did. Okay.
Well, so that was over an hour.
Yeah. Well, which tiers do you typically find yourself plucking running backs from, or which ones do you avoid?
So I generally favor the hero RB approach. So I will almost certainly try to get one of my first 3 tiers of running backs. The group that ends with Rachaad White, which for me are guys that are borderline round 2 picks. Some of those guys bleed into round 3. But if I can get one of those guys in my first 3 tiers, that's the approach I typically tend to take. Then I usually will gravitate toward tiers. Somebody usually in tier 5 or 6 will end up probably on my roster, depending on how the build goes. But tier 7, tier 8, tier 9 is kind of where I live to get a big bulk of the running backs on my fantasy team.
So it's interesting, right? Because you talk about hero RB, which I think is a terrific way to build your team. I guess if I were going to disagree with you, I would take Travis Etienne, who's in tier 3 for you, and I would put him in tier 2, which would mean McCaffrey, Hall, Bijan in tier 1, Gibbs, Barkley, Taylor, Kyren in tier 2. For you, I'd throw Etienne in there. And that is where hero RB would end for me. I don't think I'd do hero RB with James Cook, Pacheco, Derrick Henry, or Rachaad White personally. So I guess that's just, I don't know. I see a difference there. Like, I almost feel like, yeah, I'd want to probably dip into the running back pool a little bit earlier.
So let me ask. Okay, that's fine. And I just want to get your opinion on something. So let's just say you go, you have the 3rd overall pick and you get Tyreek Hill. Then you come back at the back end of round 2, and I don't know who your favorite receiver is. Are you a Nico Collins guy there?
No, I'm Olave, London, if they're there.
Okay, so let's say Olave falls there. So you go Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave. You get to round 3, and Pacheco is the best running back available versus Michael Pittman.
Pacheco.
So you go Pacheco. So what you're saying is, which
Kelsey, if he's available. Go ahead.
Okay, Kelsey, fine, perfect. So you go Kelsey. So you have 2 receivers and Kelsey. I'm sorry, 2 receivers and Kelsey.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't what I was getting for. What I was going for.
You want me to take a running back? Yeah. Okay, Pacheco.
No. So what you're saying is, if this is the build you start with, and I know just one guy in particular you're looking for Zach Moss in round 5, right? 6.
No, I have 6 or 7. I mean, I feel like he's
okay, but you're looking for a guy in that tier.
I like Kamara in round 5. I like Moss, who's in tier 7 for you. Yeah, I would go into tier 4 or tier 6. Probably
I guess Moss, just because of where he's going, is probably not the best player to mention. So if Kamara is there, you go Pacheco, you would look to almost double tap it and go Kamara with your next pick, round 4.
If I have Hill, Olave, Pacheco,
Yes.
I will tell you the answer after this quick break on Fantasy Football Today Express. Okay, I've started out with Tyreek Hill, Olave, and Pacheco. What do I do in round 4 if Alvin Kamara is there? And give me a wide receiver who's there.
The wide Malik Neighbors. Ooh.
No, I wouldn't take him. That's too early for me. But maybe like a George Pickens. Yeah, I'd go Kamara. But I'm typically just going to go best player available, to be honest. If I'm going to have a hero, my point was if I'm going to have a hero RB build, for me, that's a 2-tier build, not a 3-tier build. Like you got to feel great about your running back. You got to feel like your running back, to me, your running back has every role. The goal line role, the pass catching role is more or less an every down back. And that's where I think with James Cook, Pacheco, Derrick Henry, I don't know that that's the case with them. With Rachaad White, it probably is, but I think he's not a very good running back.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use every down back. I think for you, it's the elite backs. Like you view the first 2 tiers, correct me if I'm wrong, as more elite level backs.
But they're all every down backs, I think, except for Jahmyr Gibbs, who's elite. McCaffrey, Hall, Bijan.
Yeah,
Gibbs.
but I mean, like you said, Rachaad White's an every down back. I think Pacheco's an every down back on the roster.
That's the big thing. Like if Pacheco's an every down back and he's going to catch 50 balls, then he'd be probably a tier 2 guy for me. Don't know if they'll do that with him. All right, we should talk about more players here. I love tier 7 as an RB. I mean, RB4 would be great, but even as an RB3, Tajay Spears, Jalen Warren, Brian Robinson Jr., Raheem Mostert. I like that tier, Jamie.
Yeah, this is where, again, I think you start to get some value and certainly plenty of upside, especially if you're still a Mostert guy. But, you look at Spears, he could be the best guy on his team. Jalen Warren obviously has so much potential. He outscored Najee Harris in PPR last year. I just think that Harris is going to have somewhat of a bounce back season, being in better shape, and with Arthur Smith there, I think that will benefit Harris as much as it benefits Warren. But Warren clearly is going to get maybe 180 to 200 carries, which will be fantastic. And this is just a good group to target. Brian Robinson could be the best running back in Washington, maybe by a significant margin. So there's a lot to love about this group, and even the next group too. It's just it doesn't necessarily have to be a hero RB build. It just is. This is where you start to build your depth. And so if you lean receiver heavy early, you can start to stockpile some of these running backs and get tremendous value.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say I kind of hate tier 8 actually. Javonte Williams, Austin Eckler, Devin Singletary. I don't see myself drafting them unless they're falling. If we start getting into round 10 or something like that, and I can get the starting running back for the Giants or the Broncos, then yeah, sure. But I don't know. I
think I was thinking more tier 10.
Okay, yeah. So tier 10 is Jerome Ford, Chase Brown, Zeke, Corum, Dowdle, McLaughlin, Charbonnet. And for what it's worth, tier 9 is Benson, Chubb, Edwards. Yeah, good value late. And you know what? We just listen to the full show, but I would say this, and this I didn't mention on the full show. This is the second straight year where we are going to get about 8-ish running backs going in the first 2 rounds, maybe 9, maybe 10. But the 3 previous years, 2020, 2021, and 2022, we had 14 or 15 running backs going in the first 2 rounds. Changes.
I wouldn't be surprised if once the quarterbacks come into play, and if people get excited about 1 or 2 tight ends, that it's 6 or 7.
Well, it's definitely going to be McCaffrey, Hall, Robinson, Gibbs, Taylor, and Barkley. Kyron Williams is a 3rd round pick in Fantasy Pros ADP, I think. It's 2 multiple site ADPs. So you might be right. It could be 6.
He's very interesting if you go McCaffrey first. And
yeah,
he's there on the swing. Like I did one best ball draft and was like, that's easy for me. I'll chase receiver.
You're talking about the 2 best running backs in fantasy on a per game basis last
year. Yeah.
Okay, that's it for Fantasy Football Today Express. Such is life with running backs, right? Fantasy Football Today Express. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you tomorrow with our wide receiver tiers.